Welcome to A Recipe Reborn, featuring your favorite foods from Final Fantasy XIV. Hello, my name is Lemon Drop, and I develop recipes by combining real-life culinary inspiration with the in-game recipe, description, thumbnail, geography, and lore. If you're into 14 and food, please subscribe and click the bell for a new episode every week. Today I am making a Valentione Lobster Platter. This lovely spread was part of the 2019 Valentione's event. It features a beautiful red lobster and a heart-shaped pizza, a perfect dinner for two. I love the idea of a savory romantic meal since most Valentine foods are desserts and chocolates, and I'm not super keen on those. Since this is a tabletop item, I was able to very closely inspect it. It looks to me that the lobster is stuffed, so I created this recipe based on 2 lobster thermidor recipes from people who I greatly admire, Chef John and Snoop Dogg. Since there was no in-game recipe, I mocked up what I think it might look like. Lobster is a delicacy across Eorzea, so I created this recipe with ingredients from all over the continent. The pizza is shaped like the House Valentione coat of arms, so naturally I created this with Ishgardian flavors in mind. From a cooking perspective, these 2 recipes go together well because one takes time and is very simple, and the other takes less time but has many ingredients. If you plan to serve both in one meal, I recommend doing all the prep and then waiting to start actually cooking with the stove in the oven about 1 hour before you plan to serve. I'll expand on that when we get there. Pizza is something I love to make, including the dough, and it always tastes better if you give the dough lots of time to hydrate and ferment. I'm just mixing everything together, covering it, and then letting it rest at room temperature overnight or about 18 hours. I'm also making my own sauce, which is just tomatoes, garlic, and some seasonings mixed in a blender. Usually I would put balsamic vinegar in this, but I don't have any today, so I'm using malt vinegar. I like to make the sauce the same day as the dough so the flavors have time to integrate. These dough and sauce recipes will make more than you need for a dinner for 2, but my opinion is that leftover pizza is not a bad problem to have. After blending, this goes in the fridge to wait until I'm ready to use it. My dough has risen overnight, so I'm cutting it into quarters, which yields 4 8-inch or 20cm personal pizzas. You could make 2 larger ones if you prefer. This dough is very sticky, so I'm using a little olive oil to keep things moving. It's not really necessary to use this strange tickling motion to shape the dough, you can just pat it out carefully until you get where you want to go. I cut my parchment paper to size so I know when I've stretched it enough, and then it's easy to transfer to the pan. If you are making these ahead of dinner time, you'll want to stop after shaping the dough. Just cover it with plastic and let it hang out in the refrigerator until you're ready. I like to dock my dough so it stays nice and flat, but if you like bubbles, don't dock. My oven is preheated and I'm ready to bake, so it's time to dress up this dough. On my website, I've gone into more detail about how I like to cook my pizza, so just keep in mind it's a matter of preference and you can cook yours however you like. Experimenting and trying new ideas is so much fun. So it's time for the lobster. I'm steaming mine, and this one is just over 1 pound, so I'm letting it go for about 10 minutes. After dunking it in cool water, I'm taking it apart with my hands and some kitchen shears. The cloth is to protect my hands from the lobster pointies. I'm separating the parts I will use for this recipe from the parts I will use for seafood stock. You can pick through the body and the tiny legs if you want, but I feel it's too tedious for the purpose of this recipe. In other contexts, I would definitely be chewing on those little leggies. To release the meat from the tail, I'm cutting along both sides of the ventral or belly side of its abdomen and then removing the clear part of the shell. From there, I can just pull it right out. You can see that I gave the lobster a chop to the noggin before steaming, but if you've never done this before, you should know that the lobster will continue to move no matter how you choose to dispatch it. Okay, my lobster tail and head are ready to stuff, so I'm moving on to making the stuffing. Thermidor is a French recipe, so naturally it has a rich roux base and is flavored with wine, mustard, and cheese. The idea to use mushrooms comes from Chef John, and the meaty flavor and texture work really well to match the lobster. If you picked out all the meat from the lobster legs and body, you probably don't need the mushrooms. You could always use both to get more out of your thermidor. Once the flour is cooked in the butter, I'm adding the liquids and seasonings. When it comes to a simmer and thickens, I'm stirring in the lobster meat and then turning off the heat so I can add the cheese. Overheating the cheese will cause it to split and the sauce will be an oily mess. Normally this would be Gruyere, but I'm using a raclette today since it was on sale and it melts really nicely, as you can see. I'm ready to stuff, so I'm just spooning in the filling a little at a time, and silly me, I forgot to buy aluminum foil so my tail is sliding around, but if you bunch up some foil, it'll stay still for you. To get a nice crispy brown crust, I'm shaking together some crushed crackers with a little shredded parmesan and then sprinkling and patting them into the filling. You could also dip, but I found that not as many cracker crumbs stick with that technique, so I'm using the sprinkle and pat method. You can see I also stuffed and topped the carapace. So these go under the broiler for about 5 minutes, make sure you keep an eye on them, and again, stabilize with foil. I arranged the lobster on a bed of cabbage with some lemon wedges, and now I'm garnishing with chives and parsley. For the pizza, I'm using fresh oregano, which is much more peppery than basil, so be sparing with your sprinkling. So buttery, cheesy lobster tastes great. There's no doubt about that. It is very rich, so I'm glad this is only a couple of bites. Just the right amount for 2 people. I'm sure I don't have to tell you that pizza is good, and it's even better when it's homemade by yourself or your Valentine. So even if you're not into seafood, I hope you're inclined to make a heart-shaped pizza. Tag me on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook if you do. I'd love to see your lovely cooking. For the full recipe and instructions, please check out the link to my website in the description below and in the card at the top of the screen. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next week for another recipe and another episode. Until then, please enjoy this clip of Kupo exploring the snowy mountain peak.